Okay. So today is December 8th, and this is Coffee and Conversation for Rodeph Sholom in Bridgeport. We've picked it up again. We heard Irving Glazer speak as our keynote on Veterans Shabbat, and we were very, very lucky to hear from him. He is our centenarian, and he landed on D-Day. And his stories were so unbelievable, had our congregation totally mesmerized. And so I asked him if he would come back again and talk at Coffee and Conversation. So I'm going to turn the program over to Irving. And when we're through, if he will entertain questions, then we will make that happen. So Irving, the floor is yours. We want to know everything you're going to tell us about your World War II experience.
Okay, but I have one question. Do you know how many people are there now that were there for your Shabbat? I don't want to repeat.
I would say not enough to make a difference.
Doesn't make a difference.
Doesn't make a difference.
Okay, so the fact is that you all know that my name is Irving Glazer, and I am now in my 100th year. But I want you to know that I was inducted into the military in 1943 at the age of 22. I had my military training in the state of Virginia, at Camp Belvoir, Virginia, for 3 to 4 months, at which time I was trained to be a demolition specialist. After my 4 months of training, I was shipped overseas and went to join the Engineer Battalion, the 531st Engineer Special Brigade, or also attached to the Engineer Shore Regiment. We learned at that time, or at least I did, my fellow people in the camp were old-time engineers. They had already been through 3 invasions: Africa, Italy, and Sicily. And now I joined them in England as a rookie, and I had to learn whatever they already know, I had to learn. And we had about 5-6 months of training, and we had 2 or 3 dry runs of invasions. And at the end of, or close to the end of time, word came around June 2nd that we were all going to meet in the mess room, or where we all can stay together. And at that time in the mess room, we were given information that the invasion was going to be held on June 5th. And we had to be prepared. We had to make sure we had no identification on us outside of our dog tags. We could bring 2 changes of underwear, 2 changes of stockings, and our regular fatigue uniform. And we would be ready to leave at 5 in the morning. On the 5th, when we were supposed to leave, the channel went through a heavy rainstorm, a bad storm really, so that they had to postpone it because planes couldn't fly at that time. And they said they're going to see what happens for the 6th. Sure enough, late at night on the 5th, we got word that we will be leaving on the 6th, to be prepared, to get all our equipment together and be ready to get up at 5 a.m. when they would wake us up. I had to have my equipment prepared, and I was carrying about, I'd say, 70 pounds of equipment on my back, as long as the others were. And we were told to be in the morning at 6 a.m. on June 6th to get ready for the invasion. Sure enough, we were walking at 6, got dressed, and got aboard. We were on board the boat waiting. And at 6 a.m., they told us to come up above. Before coming up above, we were told that the Navy would be shelling the French coast for about a half an hour to soften it up. After that, they would move the shelling over to inland, because at 6 a.m., we were going to be prepared to go into shore. We had to get up and stand in line and take our turns going down the side of the ship, which is about 2.5 stories high, on rubber rope, really, to all the way down to the landing craft, which took 30 of us at a time. And we went into a circle where we waited our turn to come into shore. We were supposed to be on the beach by 6:30. We left around 6, and we started to go into the shore, and the water, it was rough in the channel, that the currents were very strong. And as we were going, we suddenly noticed that the ship was banging and bouncing and jumping and running, that we were, most of them were getting sick. I didn't get sick. I was fine. And as we got along, we got into, about halfway, I'd say almost the length of a football field, the boat stopped, and the front fell down, and everybody started to jump off. But in the meantime, the Germans noticed that we were invading and started shelling us with shells and bombs and all kinds of machine guns. Everything was being aimed at us, but we had to jump off and get into the water up to my chest. And as I did, the gas mask that I had on hit the water, hit me in the face, and knocked my rifle off my shoulder. And I stopped to try to hunt for the rifle, so my sergeant hollered at me to get back back onto the beach, which I had to zigzag my way and behind obstacles in order to avoid. You could see where the bullets were hitting the water, where the shells were hitting the water. In fact, one of the shells, the boats that was behind us, hit one of the shells and exploded. And we saw where the guys were in the water howling for help. And we asked, the Navy was taking us in, to stop and pick them up. But the man refused. I don't know what his rating was, but he said, I have orders not to stop at anything, that I am putting 30 people at risk if I stop. So he kept going. And then we finally, as I jumped off, I worked my way and got onto the beach. And where we were supposed to meet, it wasn't the same. In other words, the boat had drifted by the currents, moved us along, and we ended up landing where we weren't supposed to land. At that time, the sergeant said to me, well, we're going to be here. And our colonel, by the name of Roosevelt, said that he is not going to bother to try to go back to where we were supposed to be, that he would start the war right where we are. And I had some heavyweight explosives on my body, and they needed them to open up one of the roads that the Germans had blocked, because the infantry could not go up into the back where it had to be. So I gave them my explosives, and the sergeant said to me, all right, Glazer, I want you, there's a stone wall, and behind that stone wall is our mines. In fact, there's a mine that says Achtung, mining. And I was trained with the mines. So I had to take the sweeper and go behind the wall and start sweeping for mines. And another one of us went to the other end of that area, which was about half the length of a football field, and to start sweeping on the football field, on the turf of the lawn there. And we was sweeping and looking for mines. And I spent almost half a day sweeping, and my other partner, both of us ended up picking out 320 mines that would have been exploded if anybody walked in that area. And I worked up practically the whole day with the minesweepers looking for the rest. Finally, by the end of the day, we had the field pretty well clear that it was safe enough to walk on. And it was already getting dusk. And so the sergeant said to me, he said, Glazer, go down to the beach, dig yourself a foxhole and prepare for the night. So that's what I did. I turned in my equipment, went down to the beach, dug a foxhole. I got down to about 2.5, 3 feet, and I suddenly had water on the bottom of the foxhole. So that what all I could do was to take my helmet, put it in the ground, and stand on the helmet. It was already getting dark, and I don't know, maybe some of you heard it, where I heard this large, hard roar, and I couldn't imagine what it was until I looked up and I saw hundreds and hundreds of planes, bombers, fighters, all that you could imagine coming overhead. And I looked up and I said to myself, you're not going to have anything to worry about. Rommel, you're mistaken. You're not going to be pushing us back into the water. And I stood on there. Finally, I lit a cigarette and relaxed and tried to sleep. But during the night, some planes came over. I think they were trying to strafe, but they couldn't because we had protection balloons up in the air. And if they tried to strafe, they would be entangled. But I understand that the artillery shot some of them down and they left. And that took care of the first day of the invasion. Now, if you like, I can go into the second day. And I got some information here that I keep. Well, I was... Oh, yeah, okay. On the second day, I was put back onto another minefield to look for some more mines. But while I was working, it was early in the morning, about say 8, 9, 10, or somewhere around there, while sweeping, and there was the road along to the side of the area where I was sweeping, and all of a sudden, 2 Germans come running down the road waving a white flag, a rag or whatever it was. They were quitting. They wanted to be captured. So we picked them up and they were taken to a lockup where we had prepared to keep prisoners. And then it didn't take long, 2 or 3 more would come along. The Germans were quitting. Then as I got through to halfway through the day, and the sergeant said to me, take a break. And I did. And all of a sudden we see, I would say 20 to 25 Germans led by 3 military police coming down, and they're hollering, bye-bye, bye-bye, America, America. We go America, we're going America. Those prisoners were taken to be put on board a ship, and they said that they would probably be shipped off to America. I couldn't believe that, but we were told they could go to a prisoner of war camp. So that really, if the finger would have been in vogue in those days, I'm sure the finger would have been used. The GIs were mad as could be that they go to the States and they're making fun of us. But anyway, we got over that and we went back to continue our work. Now I got to check my schedule here. Okay. The reason we had dropped so many people further from shore as possible was because at low tide, you could see all the obstacles that Rommel had planted, so to speak, to keep us from coming on shore. And he said we were going to be left on the shore. We will never make it to the division. We will all be killed there on the shore. But it didn't turn out that way. And we had to go down to the shore at low tide and start disarming the obstacles that the Germans had planted. And practically the whole French coast was armed with different model of obstacles. But we disabled them, we cut them down, took them out, those that were stuck into the ground, so that now the ships could come in at low tide. They didn't have to stay out and have food and clothing and things brought in by duck. Duck was, in other words, a two-way vehicle that they could drive on land, and if they had to go into water, could drive into the water. And they would bring goods into and supplies into shore to be distributed. After about a month later, Cherbourg was captured by the Germans. Cherbourg was taken back by the United States, and it had to be rebuilt. Once Cherbourg was finished, boats could now dock at Cherbourg and unload there, so that there's less of a strain in the area of the invasion. And so we were gotten to a point where we could build a sort of a medical center, a prison area, a place where we could sit and eat, and we made it very handy for us. We were there on the beach, I would say, from 3 to 4 weeks. And then we were told that we were going to be going inland to Holland, which was Maastricht. We got an emergency, they did an emergency call that Holland needed some guards for one of their bridges that they had prepared for explosion. And they didn't want the Germans to get it or to blow it up. So we had to go there with a certain group of men, and we took turns on guarding that bridge. And eventually we were there for about 3 or 4 days, and the Germans were no longer available as far as we know. And they didn't have any warning that there would be any attempt to take the bridge. And we went back to the beach. The beach, we started to put in prisoner lockups, first aid medical service, and a place to sit and eat. For food, we had nothing but what's known as sea rations. The sea rations contain nothing but crackers, a pack of cigarettes, a bar of chocolate, and maybe a can of cold soup or something. So one day, I and two of my buddies decided we got to do something. We got to our clothes were already filthy. We had to get them clean. So we had an idea. We took, each of us took some chocolate bars, a pack of cigarettes, and chewing gum. And we noticed that about a half mile up the hill, there was a farm. Although while we were there, we didn't see any activity around the farm. But my buddy, that the two fellows that I became friends with, decided to take a walk up there and see what was happening at that building. We got up there and we looked around, and there we went around the back, and there's a man looking at a cow. And we more or less got to say hello to him. And the first thing he did, he had a couple of cups, and he took the 2 cups and put some milk into it. And he offered it to us. So we drank the milk, and we gave him a pack of cigarettes and a chocolate bar. And we asked, or one of the fellows knew a little French, and asked, could we get clothes washed? And it turned out that he would, if we would give them. They only wanted the chocolate bars and cigarettes. They didn't want any cash. So we gave him two packs of cigarettes and a couple of chocolate bars. And we said we would be back, and we took our clothes. When we got back, took our clothes, packed it up, and brought it back to him. And they would wash them and fold them and have it ready in 2 days for us. So that was okay with us. And as I say, we found that the French didn't want anything but American cigarettes and chocolate bars. And we were on the beach, and I would say about 2 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks. All the mines in the area were done. Roads were cut through the area so that the equipments could run up and back from inland through the roads. And we were getting told that we were moving out, and we were going back up to Maastricht to do some more guard work. And now we were concerned because we were told they have to watch out for buzz bombs, the German buzz bombs. And as long as you could see the bomb and hear it, you were safe. The minute the bomb had to pass over you, got quiet, or the motor shut off, it ran out of the gas, it would surely come down. So if you saw it and heard it, you were safe. If you saw it, it was over you were also safe. You couldn't stop because it would pass you before it came down. But while we were in Maastricht, one of the buzz bombs came overhead and stopped and landed on one of our bridges that we were protecting. And we lost 4 or 5 personnel in the bombing of that bridges. Now, the rest of my story goes past the invasion. And so I don't know how far back you want to go.
You can keep going as you've got time, if it's okay with you.
You can keep going if you want to.
Oh, okay. Well, once we were finished with the beach, as I say, we went to Maastricht and did some guard duty in Maastricht. From there, we were finished. We got word that we were getting close to where there was activity with the Germans as far as the attacks of what is it?
Is that
Oh, well, we were coming to the point where the Germans were becoming a problem, what was it? I can't think of. Oh, bulge, the bulge. We were coming to the point where the bulge was now a problem. And we were told that we would have to go around the bulge area. And during nighttime, we would have to walk around almost like guard duty, looking for German paratroopers around the bulge. And sure enough, as we were walking around, we were given a place to sit, so to rest. And while we were sitting, this is in the wintertime now, and it started to snow. And we had to walk around and look for the paratroopers in the snow. And we finally got so that we were covered up with snow that we couldn't, but fortunately we didn't find any paratroopers. After the bulge, we were told we were going to go back into the German area. And we went into Germany, and we got word that we were going to go to Limburg. Limburg is where Hadamar was. And I had the opportunity to visit Hadamar. This is a German where they kept the so-called crazy people, they said. But they were not, it was like a prisoner of war camp, but a experimental hospital, so to speak. And we visited there, and we found there were 2 ovens, and behind the building was a 14-foot wall. Behind that wall, we found burial of, they said there's at least 20,000 bodies in the back of that wall. And we find out that they were killed not only by oven, there were 2, as I say, 2 ovens, but even by injection, that they were killing not only the Jews, but the Russians and Polish, whoever they didn't like. But they had a front by saying, we have crazy people here. That's all we have. But they had the proof that it was like a prisoner of war camp, and it was shut down. After that, we went to Germany, and Germany, in the other parts of Germany, we found where Germans were lying about a lot of things, and they were not allowed to have motorcycles. If they had to go to work, they had to use a bicycle. One of them we found that where we were staying, they had a motorcycle. We grabbed that motorcycle and took it away from them. And another time, I was left behind in one of the barracks while the rest of the men had work to do outside. I was supposed to guard that building. While I was there, I happened to walk into another room, and there's a German walking around the room. And I couldn't speak German. That's all I could say is, Wasserschloss, what's up? And he was trying to push me away from the front door. And I couldn't understand. So I grabbed my rifle and pushed him out. And while I'm pushing him out, I hear noise on the side of the building. So I walk around and I see his buddy is there with a wagon, stealing firewood, piling it up on his wagon. I got mad. And I grabbed him and I said to him, put it back. He put the wood back, and he said, with his big wooden wagon, I took a shovel and I started to bang that wagon, breaking up the wood. And I more or less said to him, you want wood? There's your wood. You leave this wood alone, get out. But if you can't talk German, it's tough. Whether he understood me, I don't think he had any harm in knowing what I was talking about. And after that, we were getting close to the end of the war in Germany. And I and some of the other fellows were sent back to France, to the coast where we could be in a camp waiting the war was over now, and we were in happy and restful condition. And we were in Philip Morris camp, where I had to wait until I was given word that we would be going home soon. So while waiting to go home, I had the sergeant comes up to me and says, "Are you Irving Glazer?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "They want you at the office." I said, "They want me at the office?" He said, "Yeah, go in and see the sergeant at the office." So I go inside into the office and I said, "Sergeant, are you looking for me? I'm Irving Glazer." He said, "Yeah, are you a musician?" I says, "I was. I'm not now. I haven't been for the last 3 years." He says, "Well, we need somebody to play the saxophone tomorrow night. We would like you to sit in and take over for that." I said, "But I'm waiting to go home." He says, "That's all right. It's only for one night." So I did. I went down to the music hall there, and they were having a dance on Saturday night, and they gave me a saxophone. And I sat in with the band and I played. So that one night, and I earned myself $20. But they asked me when I was going home. So I just said, "I'm sorry. I'm going home shortly. I'm not going to sit in for next Saturday for another dance." And I left. And sure enough, that Saturday, I was given orders to pack up. That I was going home. And I did. And that was the end of it. I got on board ship, and I was home by the 1946 in January, just after New Year's. And that's my story.
Wow. That's quite a story, Irving. You are simply amazing. We are so grateful that you came home. I'm going to ask if anybody has any questions for Irving.
Okay.
Okay. If anybody has any question, would you raise your hand? And I suspect that Vassell is going to transfer the question.
Question to my wife will repeat it to me.
Okay, fair enough. Any questions? Lenny?
Yeah, Irving, I'm just totally in awe. Thank you for protecting us and everything you've done. The sweeping of those mines, and you were talking about how you found 320 mines. That sounds like a particularly dangerous, potentially dangerous activity. Could you speak a little bit more about what was involved in how you protected yourself during that time, and just any more specifics that you're willing to share with us about how you did sweep the mines? I don't know what's involved with that.
Okay. Well, actually, protecting myself was in my training. I learned or taught how to handle the mines. The only way to protect myself was to be careful. And to be careful, I had to use a bayonet to stick into the ground to make sure that that mine didn't have another one underneath it. Because once you put weight on the mine underneath it, that activated that mine underneath it, that pushed the pin down and activated the mine. So if I were to pull that top mine off, I would be bye-bye. So the first thing to do is to push your sword or bayonet into the ground to make sure there was nothing underneath it. And as long as those 3 prongs were up, the mine was not activated. If you walked and stepped on those 3 prongs, they would go down and activate the mine. But as long as you stood there, you were safe. The minute you took your foot off, boom, and there was nothing you could do. You would say, well, maybe you could stand there and hold that mine, but and slide your foot off it. No way. Once that weight is off those 3 prongs, you're gone. You lose a leg or 2 legs or your life. So as I say, we had to be very careful, but we knew what to do. And once we got the mine up with those 3 prongs in position, you were safe. And a double check was it had a little hole in the mine. If you had a pin, you could put a pin in so that it wouldn't go down. But we didn't have pins. We just had to be careful how we handled that mine to make sure that we didn't put the 3 prongs down. And we were very careful. And as I say, we got almost 400 mines out of that field. And it's, oh, I can also tell you, what did they do with those mines? Well, there is one way that were done. The mines were laid up. Those we didn't do it, but another company would lay the mines down. And the British took a bulldozer and modified it so that it had chains on it, extended. So we called it the funny machine. And the bulldozer would go over those mines with those chains like this, but far enough away from the driver, and the driver protected and would set up all those mines and blow them all up. That was one way that we were able to get rid of them.
Oh, thank you.
Irving, Sheila Strauss sent you a message. She said hello. I don't know if you saw that. Giselle, can you tell him?
Strauss. Oh, Sheila Strauss. Is that a relative?
Yes,
Yes.
hi,
Hi. How are
I'm
Sheila?
your cousin
Yeah.
from Herman's daughter.
Yeah.
The Souders you're talking about.
Right, right. So I think it's wonderful. We never knew anything about your story after all these years to hear it. Thank you. And I loved your mother.
She loves you.
And your mother-in-law. They're-
Right. Who relative?
I'm cousins of Giselle too, and
Yeah.
Irving.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I reckon. I didn't recognize you.
It's a long time.
So
It's a
many
long-
years.
Yes, yes.
Larry Shire. has
Yes,
a question.
yes. Hi, Irving. I met you at the Veterans Day thing, and I'm continually amazed by the tales you could tell. I have a follow-up question. What Lenny had asked. I saw a war movie just several years ago, and I think it was from the Gulf War or maybe Afghanistan. I think it was called Jarhead, but it involved guys who dismantled IUDs, and they wore all this type of protective equipment, and they look like the who is that, the Michelin tire guy, with all the equipment that they were wearing. So my follow-up question to what Lenny asked was, you told about the precautions you took. Did you I don't think you had any such equipment like that, did you?
Okay.
Protective equipment?
The protective equipment, that movie that you saw, that Jarhead, what war was that?
That was, I believe that was, it was either Afghanistan or Iraq. I mean, so it's recent, So my
Right.
question really is that now guys who dismantle IUDs and IEDs, and bombs and stuff like that, and mines, they have a lot of protective equipment, but you did this all without protective equipment. Is that correct?
Okay, when you swept the mines, and did you have any protective equipment that you wore?
Nothing but my basic uniform.
Yeah,
The
that's what I thought.
That's it. That's the only equipment I had on, whatever's on. If I made a mistake, I wouldn't be sitting here.
Yeah. Well, then 10 times credit to you, because now the soldiers wear, and it's not foolproof, they could still lose a limb, of course, but they wear a lot of protective equipment when they dismantle bombs and explosive devices at this point.
Right. But you're talking years ago where
Of course.
those things weren't available. The only protection I had was that man upstairs.
Yes, yes. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay. I see Diana. Did you have a question?
Oh, no, I was sorry. I was trying to mute myself and I was going to write IEDs instead of IUDs.
Thank you. Okay. Lenny, did you want to follow up on that? I'm trying to get, okay,
Can you hear me now?
yes.
Okay. What was it like for you, Irving, when you returned from the war in terms of, you know, going through, you know, processing everything you had been through and, you know, how that, maybe this is too personal, so I understand, but, you know, how you were or weren't able to relate to your, you know, your family and people around you about what, you know, the horrors that you saw and getting yourself back into the mainstream. What was that like for you?
Well, it wasn't happy. It was happy that I was home, but I found it was hard sleeping at night because things kept going, things that you were used to doing. And there would not be something that would happen during the day that would make you think back. And as of today, it's the same condition. Something will happen during the day that would make me think back of what happened 70, 80 years ago. It's not easy. It's very bad. And when it comes time for D-Day, Veterans Day, the holidays, it's bad for me because I keep going back.
Thank you again.
Jackie,
I don't exactly have a question, but Irving, I'm so happy you shared that with us. I want to thank you for all you did for us because it was just amazing how you could remember all this and tell us all this. I'm in awe of you. I think you did a great job. We're all very grateful to you and all those soldiers who risked their lives in so many ways. So we are here today and have what we have. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure listening to you.
Well, thank you very much too. But these things are etched into my mind. And I'm not sure I'm not the only one. You talk to any veteran and they'll tell you the same thing. Once you've done it, you live with it.
Well, you're right, because I know my father-in-law was a veteran and he was in France also, and he used to tell stories of how grateful the French people they met were and how nice they treated the soldiers and how thankful they were. So still in all, there aren't that many around now to tell us about it and share. So thank you so much for doing that for us.
Thank you.
Leon Gould, did you have a question?
Yes. Thank you first for the presentation, which was really very gripping. During the battles that you experienced, were there any Jewish chaplains or any other chaplains that you came across that gave comfort to the soldiers?
I didn't get.
I met a Jewish lieutenant. In fact, my lieutenant was Jewish. One of my sergeants was Jewish. And one we had, if I remember right, a captain that was Jewish. There were only 3 of us that were Jewish. And we had no way of observing the holidays, no place to go for it. And in fact, what they did, they asked, this is back in basic training, at Christmas time, if anybody that is Jewish would be willing to stay behind and do some work so that a Gentile could go home for Christmas. And I did that. For one day, I had to do KP, while the person that would normally have done it was able to go home with his family. But that's the only, in my outfit, there was, just that I knew of, that were 3 of us that were Jewish, but I had no problems with anti-Semitism, so we're good.
I have a question, Irving. Did I hear correctly that you said your colonel was Roosevelt?
Well, your commanding officer was
Yeah.
Roosevelt. That's
Oh,
what she-
yeah, well, this is not the President Roosevelt family. This is the Teddy Roosevelt. He is the grandson of the original Teddy Roosevelt. And he was a great man. And in fact, when we got onto the wrong beach and we didn't know what to do, he said, we will start the war right here.
That's
But he was
what I
sick.
thought.
He was a sick man and he passed away in August of a heart attack.
That's what I thought. Okay. Could you describe, for those of us who have heard the term Battle of the Bulge for years and years and years, what did the bulge actually look like? What was it?
describe it.
It was just the area that the battle was taking place. That was all in a surrounded area and they were protected. And so because it was a protected area, they called it the budge. At least that's the way I looked at it. And we were there only to look for paratroopers that might have landed. But otherwise, that's the reason that we called it the budge.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
The bulge. Okay. Are there any more questions or comments?
Nobody else?
Erica? No, Erica? I have to unmute you. Wait, you're not unmuted. Hold on. Okay,
Thank you.
Erica.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you so much for your service for the country and for stopping the war and saving some Jewish lives. And on behalf of my survivor family and those relatives that some of them maybe you knew in this community who did survive the war, thank you again for all you did. It's an amazing story. And I don't know if you ever spoke to of those survivors. Being in the business you were, so many of them passed away the past 20 years. We have very few left, very few survivors. But thank you so much, amazing, for all you did. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to thank you, Carol. You're doing a great job with the veterans.
Well, Irving, you make it easy. Our veterans are very dear to my heart. You all know that. And when I spoke to you originally and I said you are of the greatest generation,
All right.
there is nothing like our World War II veterans. You folks are amazing. And I hear that from current veterans who have been both to Afghanistan and Iraq, and they talk about you as their models. So I salute you. I thank you. I'm proud to call you my friend. I really am. And I thank all of you for coming, for supporting Coffee and Conversation, for listening, and we'll just do more of these programs. Thank you, Irving, again, for everything.
Sheila,
It was
thank
our
you.
pleasure.
You were there.
Our pleasure, Carol. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Irving.
Well, Sheila leaves, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Be safe.
Okay, have a good day, everybody.
You too. Be safe.
going
everyone.
off.
Okay, thank you, Vassell.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Carol.
Bye, thank you.